So you know when you should be studying for your pharmacy diploma, but instead of doing that you decide to film a video on pharmacy to stop yourself from studying for the diploma because you can't be bothered to do it? That is currently the situation that I am finding myself in. But hi, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to talk actually about work experience. So I get a lot of questions about work experience in pharmacy and how to get it and stuff. So I will touch on community, hospital, briefly industry, and a bit of GP as well. And I'm just going to talk about how I got my experience in those places and how you can as well. Now, work experience is difficult to get because a lot of people these days are really resistant. It's easier to say no than it is to say yes. It's easier for someone who's a pharmacist to say, nah, I don't really have time for that, than it is to say yes and have someone shadow you for a day. So it is hard to get your foot in the door, but once your foot is in that door, it is in that door. So first of all, how did I get experience in community pharmacy? Well, this is the first place that I got experience in, actually. Basically, what I did was my mum drove me around every pharmacy in town, and this was not her idea, this was my idea. Like, I remember like getting it from Google and like writing down the postcode, and she'd wait in the car and I'd get out and then I'd walk in face to face and be like, hi, my name's Regina, I was just wondering if I could get some work experience. A lot of the time it didn't work, but it worked once, and that is all I needed. So here are 5 tips on how you might be able to secure work experience in a community pharmacy. Okay, the first tip is obviously have your CVs in hand and dress smart. So that's like an obvious thing. Don't just walk in empty-handed. Have your CV ready and be dressed smart. Secondly, I used to go around asking to speak to the pharmacist, but actually the pharmacists aren't really in charge, not always in community pharmacies at the moment. Quite a lot of the places have managers, and then the pharmacist will be like separate to that. Sometimes you get pharmacy managers, in which case that is the person you want to talk to, but generally you want to speak to the person who's running the store. For example, if someone came into a pharmacy that I was working at as a pharmacist, I wouldn't be able to help them, but the managers of the store will generally be able to help you. So ask to speak to the manager. The third thing that I would recommend is to avoid weekends, because on a weekend you're not always going to get your regular pharmacists. You might have the locum pharmacists like myself who just cover and again who can't help you, whereas on a Monday morning you will pretty much most of the time have like the regular staff. Also, they can't reject you. For example, on a weekend people can say, oh, just come back next week when the manager's in on the Monday, but on a Monday morning they can't say that. So don't waste your time, don't waste theirs. My fourth tip is to think about targeting independent pharmacies. So with your Boots and your Lloyds and like the big companies, although they are really good places to work experience, they'll be a little bit harder because you might have to go through like the official channels, like through their HR and all of that, which takes longer. Whereas if you walk into an independent pharmacy, they're much more likely to know who the boss is, and then you can just start working straight away. And that's exactly how I got mine. I don't know how it's going to work now, but at the time when I got work experience, I walked in, I spoke to the pharmacist who was actually the pharmacist manager, and that was it. My last tip for community is to ask, and that's actually a tip that I use a lot when I'm trying to get work experience, not just in community, but that is to ask for one day. So if you start saying like, I really want to start working here every weekend and I want to do this and I want to do that, a bit too much, and they don't even know you yet. Whereas if you ask for one day, then if you make a good impression on that one day, everything is easy from there. So for my first experience in a community pharmacy, every other community pharmacy rejected me. Like, they threw away my CVs, they never got in contact with me, they lost my CVs, whatever. But one independent pharmacy was like, yeah, you can work here for a day. And after that, he invited me back and I worked there the whole summer. Okay, now I'm going to talk about work experience in a hospital. So hospital is definitely much harder to get into. It's kind of difficult now to get it without going through the official channels, which are like the universities that do their placements and stuff. I think it's quite rare to just be able to get work experience without going through your school or whatever. But I would say definitely if you've got contacts, make use of your contacts. So that's the first point. I know it seems a bit silly, but I didn't have any contacts, so I couldn't do that. But I know a few of my friends who did, and I've also been on the receiving end of those contacts as well. For example, there's been people who have gotten my details from my colleagues, and I've helped their nieces or whatever get their applications done and stuff. If you know the right people, then it's easier for them to at least guide you in the right direction as to how to get work experience. The second thing is hospitals definitely respond better via email. So I would not recommend, especially during this time, particularly like with the whole corona situation going on, like you don't want to be walking into hospital. Community is a little bit different, but in a hospital, like they're not going to take that well, especially like inpatient pharmacies. If like a randomer turns up and they're like, hi, I want work experience, it's not going to go down well. So try and find the right person to email. The first hospital experience that I personally had was in Guy's and St. Thomas Hospital. That was through university. The third point that I want to say about hospital is that I made my application different and I also was honest. I just said, oh, I don't have experience in hospital, but everyone has to start somewhere. So could you be that place for me? And I managed to get work experience there. I'm not saying start every application like completely wild and different, and you have to kind of like read the room, make sure you are answering the questions properly. But if you're just writing, hello, I'm a student and I want work experience, I love pharmacy, then they've read so many applications like that. Be honest, like you can't bullshit your way through something and be like, I've worked in 10 hospitals without actually doing that. So be honest, yeah. The last point is, if you're not applying through a channel, like such as university or school, and you're just applying yourself, make sure that you attach your CV to the email as well, so that they know that you're serious, and that way someone who might not be the right person receiving that email can then direct you towards someone who can help you. So in summary, for hospital, make use of your contacts if you have any. Try and find the right person to email. If you're going through an official channel, then make your application stand out and be different and honest as well. And the last thing is attach your CV if you are applying just by yourself, so that people know that you're serious. Okay, so industry, I didn't apply for work experience in industry. I've kind of interviewed someone this weekend about how to get kind of work experience in industry, so I'm gonna not talk about that in this video, but you'll be able to, watch that in the next one. But in general as well, for industry, it's all about getting your foot in the door, but I'll talk about that in the next video. Okay, so then there's GP pharmacy, and at the time that I needed work experience, GP pharmacists weren't really a thing, but I think slowly they're gaining more traction. They're holding their own clinics and stuff. I did get experience shadowing a GP pharmacist, and that was through my university though, so I didn't apply myself directly. But in general, from what I can see, to get into a GP surgery, what you need to do is first of all speak to the GP pharmacist. The one that I was shadowing wasn't working every day. I think that they had like a GP pharmacist for a couple of days a week who would oversee everything. So make sure that you call a surgery and you know when that pharmacist is working. The second thing is obviously speak to the GP pharmacist and also ask them just for a couple of hours to shadow. For me, I think I was there for like a week, and a week was way too much because it's not in a hospital where you're like rushing around all over the place, and it's not like community where there's like different kind of patients coming in and out. GP pharmacy was like pretty much almost like you're shadowing a GP. So you're in one room together, it's you, the GP pharmacist, and the patient. I don't really think I needed to be there for the whole week. Obviously, it's good the more that you have, but personally as well, if I was a GP pharmacist, would I be happy with someone just sat there in the corner the whole time? You can't really help them as much. Like in hospital, you can be like, okay, can I try and do this medicines reconciliation? And like you can get on with your own stuff, and then you can mark what I've done after. And in community, you can serve patients and stuff. But I feel like in GP, you can't really help the GP pharmacist as much. So I don't really think you need a lot of time like shadowing them. So if you are going to try and shadow them, like I said, first of all, find out when they work. And the second point is ask them for a couple of hours. I'm sure that they'll be open to that, and if they're not open to a couple of hours, then they're not a good pharmacist. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Now, I'm going to talk next about what to do once you get the work experience. So if someone has allowed you to shadow them, my recommendations are the following. Take a gift. So the first thing I'd always do before I do work experience is I'll take a gift at the start. I know everyone's all about taking gifts at the end, but I feel like it's a nice way to open up that relationship and just for them to know that you're grateful. So I always would take something at the start and say, thanks for giving me the actual chance to be here today. I know that it's a bit of an inconvenience, but I really appreciate it. And they've always appreciated that. And like once you start off with that relationship quite nicely, they're more likely to need you or want you back. The second thing is do all the jobs that no one wants to do. You're not ever going to be above a job. Sometimes it gets into people's heads that that's not my job, that's for someone else. But my mum like always said to me, I have to go places and not be like that. Whenever I'm in community or whatever, I did the needle exchange program, which is like entering all these boring figures onto the system. I would also do the washing up in the kitchen really regularly, and I would clean. And they're not like major pharmacy related roles that I was doing, but I think everyone at least appreciated that if I was there, I wasn't just stood around not doing anything. I'd always have something to do. Because I was so grateful to be there and have the opportunity, I'd always make sure that people wanted me around. That goes for working as a locum pharmacist as well. I always think just make sure that if as a locum pharmacist there's nothing to do, help the dispenser, like help them do jobs that they have to get done as well. Like why just sit around? And thirdly, expect that obviously it's going to be unpaid. You're not employed officially, this is work experience, so you might not get paid, so don't be expecting that. Lastly, after you've completed the work experience, you've said bye, you've given your thank you gift and you've finished, make sure you write down what you actually did. because that will really help you when it comes to applications, your other applications. If you leave work experience not knowing what you've actually done, then when you write big hospital applications or even industry applications or whatever, and you've got nothing to say because you can't remember what you actually did. Whereas if you write down everything you did, like the last day you do work experience, I know this is the last thing you want to do, but just sit down or just jot it down on your phone. Just be like, okay, I entered the needle exchange figures, I served patients over the counter, I issued repeat prescriptions, I phoned the GP. Like, make sure that you write it all down so that when it comes to your other applications, you've already got that list of roles and responsibilities that you had at that work experience, and it just makes everything easier. So, okay, I hope that video helps, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!